So now that we are about in mid-June, we find ourselves in the season of summer. And in the Chinese understanding of the five elements and the seasons and all of the various correlations, the summer season is associated with the fire element, which is associated with the heart, which is associated with the psycho-spiritual aspect called the Shen. And that's exactly what we're going to talk about in this podcast. We're going to talk about some herbs to help out with the Shen, and things which can help to nourish the heart and the Shen, and things that are really beneficial to do during the season of the summer, which is essentially the high time for the fire element. Also going to learn about what is Shen and how it's really considered to be one of the most important aspects and really one of the most fundamental overarching things to nourish and to really pay attention to achieve health. And at the same time, it can also be one of the major sources and causes of disruptions, imbalances, and a real lack of ease in the system. This is something that I've studied a lot kind of in the beginning, because my initial and original attraction was based on building and cultivating Shen. And that's how I really became attracted to the herbs and really became attracted to Chinese thought, Chinese philosophy in general, because they actually had this conceptual basis for Shen and what for Shen actually is and how it interrelates, interplays, and influences the other energies in the body. So it's really cool that this has come up again recently in my own personal practice as well as my own work and my own research. So if you're not familiar with Shen or what I'm even talking about, basically in the Chinese thought or the TCM thought or the Chinese shamanistic thought, Chinese philosophy, Taoism, whatever word you want to put on it, there's this understanding of looking at the body through the lens of the three treasures. And the three treasures are jing, qi, and Shen. And basically, in this modality, in this paradigm, these three treasures are really making up the body. And they're foundational energies which contribute to the quality and quantity of our lifespan. So just briefly, if we want to understand jing, qi, and Shen, we can just use an example of a candle. And we can say that we are like a candle and our life is like a candle. Kind of like Forrest Gump in that, life is like a box of chocolates, but obviously much more deep and profound. So basically, our physical body, our dense physical substance, would be considered jing in a way. Much in the same way that a candle's waxen wick would be considered jing. It's basically the foundational basis or essence which makes up the quality and quantity of the lifespan. Meaning if you have a really small candle with a really small wick, it's going to burn out pretty quick and that candle's going to be done. But if you have a candle with a really thick, long, large wax base and a really thick and large wick, odds are that candle's going to last a lot longer and produce a lot more energy. Secondary to that, we can understand that qi, or the energy, would be like the flame of the candle. It's how the energy of the jing is utilized and metabolized and put into action. And that would be equivalent to the qi inside of our body. Thirdly, the point and the purpose of the candle is to produce light, produce heat. So that would be the Shen, meaning the light that's put off, the heat that's put off from the candle. That's the point of the candle, thus it's the Shen. Much in the same way, it's believed that the jing and the qi in our human body is supportive, and the point of our body is the Shen, is to express the Shen. So the Shen is, in a nutshell, just basically our higher consciousness. But again, that's something we're going to get into and look at much more deeply in this audio and in this podcast. So Shen is really translated as spirit and encompasses some of the most complex concepts of traditional Chinese medicine. So there's a book called the Neijing, And basically in that book, Shen is mentioned about 240 times. And traditionally, the term refers to the mechanism of change, the mystery of sudden and profound transformation, and the expression in a person's face, particularly the eyes. Yet, when our human body, it describes a major part of what we would call our mental activity, our spirit, our consciousness, and our creativity. And in this understanding, really the Shen is the guiding principle in the body and sort of the highest principle in the body. And when there's disruptions in the Shen, it affects all of the organs. It affects all of the different systems in the body. It creates disruptions and imbalances and disharmonies in the system. And that might sound sort of weird or esoteric, but it's actually quite obvious, practical, and grounded in a few different ways. Number one, we need to understand that the Shen is associated with the element of fire and thus the organ of the heart. If we think about how we feel, like let's say when we get very anxious or very nervous, our heartbeat tends to get erratic. Okay, well, since all of our organs are fed and nourished by blood, obviously the flow of blood and the pulsation of blood within those organs is going to be disrupted and disharmonious because the heart is disharmonious. Thus, that one simple emotion creates imbalances across the system. Also, secondary to that, when we have certain thoughts, that creates certain biochemical reactions, certain hormonal reactions, certain endocrine reactions. For example, if we're stressed, our body secretes adrenaline, secretes cortisol, and that creates a whole cascade and chain reaction of consequences in the body, whether those be positive or negative. So just those two examples alone, we can see the interconnection of thought, feeling, and emotion, and how that can influence all the various systems in the body. And from that, we can understand a little bit more of the ancient Chinese view and why they regard the Shen or the heart as kind of the guiding principle or the highest aspect or the point of the human body. And I'm going to now go over a few different excerpts from some ancient Chinese texts just to illustrate and demonstrate the point a little bit further. So in this text called Contemplations by the Huinan Masters, and this is from about 110 BC, this book says, "The heart is the ruler of the five organ networks. It commands the movements of the four extremities. It circulates the qi in the blood. It roams the realms of the material and the immaterial, and is in tune with the gateways of every action. Therefore, coveting to govern the flow of energy on earth without possessing a heart would be like aspiring to tune a drum without ears, or like trying to read a piece of fancy literature without eyes." So another text, which is from the Ming dynasty and dates back to about 1570, says that the ancient book called the Neijing refers to the heart as the ruler of the human body, the seat of consciousness and intelligence. And this is essentially what we've already seen, understood, and discussed so far in this audio. And even from those two examples that I gave you, you can see this profound concept is actually quite simple, actually right in front of us all the time, but we may have not made the connection or may have not seen it. And the importance of this is that if we decide to nourish this crucial element in our daily practice, then this text says that our lives can be long, healthy, and secure. Yet, if the ruler's vision becomes distracted and unclear, our path will then become congested and severe harm to the material body will result. If we lead lives that are centered around distracting thoughts and activities, harmful activities will result. Thus, the book says, the sage regards his or her body like a country. The heart is the ruler, and the jing and the qi are the citizens. If the heart does not abuse its superior position, if it remains centered and focused on the essential matters, the jing will flourish and the qi will be steady. Noxious intruders will always be fought off, and the dantian will be full of energy, and every part of the body landscape will be light and at peace. So basically from that, we can see in kind of a little bit more of an esoteric nature the simple truth and the profound teaching of what we were saying earlier about nourishing the heart, the importance of nourishing the heart, and really the chain reactions that can come about if the heart is not balanced, if the Shen is not balanced, if our emotions are unstable. Because if you think about it and illustrate it like this, the nature of energy and energy flow in our body is very much like water, the way fluids flow in the body. And that's obvious because if we look at the digestive system, the circulatory system, the endocrine system, the lymphatic system, it's all fluids moving through tubes, just like water on the planet moves through rivers, lakes, and streams, moves through tubes. And then even our modern construct of plumbing and all of that, again, water moving through tubes. So we can see that principle is applicable and true within the body and outside of it. So if we have this, so let's say we have a container of water, which coincidentally our body is a container of water. But to make it a little more abstract and easy to understand, let's say you're walking and you have a container of water. Let's say you're walking with a bowl of water that's full almost to the brim. And if you were to walk and move but not spill that water, how would you have to move? You'd have to move very calmly, smoothly, and efficiently. Otherwise, you're going to spill the water, you're going to jar the bowl from side to side, and thus the water is going to be spilled out and lost. So much in the same way, if we want to contain the water, we have to move smoothly. Okay, so now we understand that energy flow in the body is a lot like water. We understand that if we want to keep water in a receptacle, we need to move smoothly and calmly in a relaxed manner. So we have this external illustration, but the same principle applies inside of our body, and that's exactly what these two passages are saying about keeping the heart calm and about keeping the ruler's vision clear and undistracted, and why we should keep our lives centered around calm and relaxing thoughts and activities. Because if our lives are centered around distracting thoughts and activities, harmful consequences will result. So to translate that and make that clear, if our thoughts and emotions are all over the place, we already see and understand how that's going to influence the heart and make the heart beat erratically and be all over the place, which is going to cause all these different hormonal secretions and mess with our nervous system, our endocrine system, and just really wreak havoc and imbalance the flow of energy in our body, the flow of blood, the flow of nutrients, the flow of all these essential compounds, which is just the same thing as walking through life holding that bowl of water but jumping around and moving erratically, meaning we're going to splash it off and we're not really going to be able to keep it and contain that inside the bowl. But if we can keep our mind and our emotions as calm and relaxed and balanced and as smooth as possible, the energy flow in the body is going to be just that, smooth, calm, and fluid. Thus, much in the exact same way that if we have that bowl of water and we want to keep the water in there, we have to move in that way. It's the same thing, same principle in our body. So hopefully that all makes sense and that's all easy to understand. Because in reality, it is quite simple. It is quite easy because it can be talked about in an esoteric, energetic, sort of spiritual way, which seems weird. But at the same time, we can look at it in just a totally crystal clear, basic way because our body is 70 to 80% water. So we are essentially containers of water. And all of the fluids that move in our body are water-based. The blood that's nourishing all of our organs is water-based. The hormones are water mixed with oils, basically. So it's all fluid-based. So to take it a little bit deeper and to get a little bit alchemical, basically we can look at the fire element as being extremely yang. But within that understanding, the water element would be the more extreme yin. So from that we have water and fire. We have positive and negative, masculine and feminine, male and female, light and dark. We have the polar opposites, which really make up the foundational basis of alchemy. Yet for that reason, the heart and the kidneys have a really intimate relationship and connection in the body. Now, without diverting too far, without going too deep into the subject, if you've done any research or any basic reading or understanding about alchemy, you'll know what I'm referring to. But I just want to point out how what we already said so far in this podcast basically illustrates and points out the practical understanding of this water-fire or positive and negative or yin-yang alchemy. And it's basically in that if we understand that the kidneys are associated with jing, and that jing is really associated with the hormonal secretions and fluids in the body, we already know the interconnection of these things. Basically what I'm referring to is how we were talking about earlier, how if we have certain thoughts or feelings or certain experiences, causes our heart rate to go erratic and then causes our adrenals to secrete certain hormones, certain stress hormones, which the kidneys and adrenals is the same system. So we can see how our Shen, or our thoughts, feelings, emotions, our consciousness, can influence our kidney jing energy. And it can either leak that energy or contain and conserve that energy. I mean, if we go through life and we maintain a smooth and fluid pace, and we're pretty balanced emotionally and energetically, we're going to get much better utilization and much more efficiency and longevity out of that kidney jing energy, because we're not constantly stressing it, we're not always going into fight or flight, we're not always tapping into those hormonal reserves. So that's one way that, working with the mind, working with the emotions, working with the heart, working with the Shen and the spirit can influence the kidney jing energy and thus preserve and promote longevity. And it's a really simple concept which we pretty much illustrated and gone through so far in this audio, but I just wanted to point that out and make that small and simple connection. So to get back to the point is just to take Shen a little bit more deeply. I want to just share a few more tidbits from the Chinese text that I mentioned earlier. And it's basically playing off of the idea that the heart contains the Shen. And that the term Shen really we can translate as spirit, and really it makes up and encompasses some of the most complex concepts of Chinese medicine. So we can attribute three major functions to the Shen. First being, mental activity and consciousness, being the manifestation of the central movement of Shen. And the ancient character for this shows a close affinity to the Big Dipper, which the Chinese actually viewed as the center of the universe. Shen therefore appears to be at the heart of all the mental and physical activities, just as they believe the Big Dipper appears to be the central pivot of the stars. And from that, the Neijing says that the heart is the emperor of the 5 yang organs and the 6 yin networks. It says that if the heart flares, then all of the other organs and systems will get out of line. And that's pretty obvious to us so far from just the simple understandings and ideas that we've understood so far. It goes on to say that the heart, via the flame of the Shen that it harbors within, is therefore like a lantern in charge of illuminating the outside world. It is seen as the source of thought processes. Any thought or idea, the will to carry it out, mental focus, planning, and intelligence can thus be considered movements and manifestations of the Shen. So from that we can see the importance of nourishing Shen and of taking care of it. The 7 emotional reactions, joy, anger, sadness, grief, fright, and worry, in their involuntary expressions, meaning facial expressions, body movements, gestures, sighing, moaning, etc., are all manifestations of Shen. And the third major function attributed to Shen would be the controlling and regulating of the mental and physical processes of the 5 modes of the Wu Shen. Which, if you're not familiar with Wu Shen, that basically means 5 spirits. And that's referring to the modes of operation of the 5 organ networks. So the Shen's associated with the heart, and then there's other spirits that are associated with the liver, the lungs, the spleen, and the kidney. And if you want to learn more about the 5 spirits, I definitely recommend reading a book by that title. You can look it up on Amazon. It's a really great book, really just profound reading, profound teaching, profound learning. And it's just called 5 Spirits. It's about alchemical acupuncture. So I would definitely recommend checking that out if you want to learn more. So that would wrap up the aspect of learning about Shen of this podcast. Hopefully it's given you a good idea as far as what Shen is, how it relates to the heart, and how all of these things interplay and relate to each other. Now, this is coming at a good time because it is summer, and summer is associated with the element of fire and the organ of the heart, and thus the Shen. So now is a great time to work with that energy and to really tonify and take care of that. So really, the best herbs to do that, if someone were to say, hey, that's great, like what can we do, what herbs can we take to really nourish and tonify and take care of the Shen? Well, obviously that would be reishi mushroom, because that is the superior Shen tonic. It is the greatest Shen herb, and it's aptly titled spirit herb or God herb or herb of spiritual potency. And really, when we're talking about the Shen and the spirit and these different aspects, it comes down to really working with the nervous system and learning to modulate and keep the nervous system calm and balanced. Because that's really the interface for all of these different aspects, whether they be visible or invisible. And reishi is great for helping to do this, but more deeply and more profoundly, the reishi spore oil is really, really great for the nervous system. This is specifically the case because of the rich concentration of triterpenes found in the reishi spore oil. Now, when we think of the nervous system, we think of the fact that it is, at least to me, it's very oily. It's made up of fats, it's made up of oils. And if you look up the biology, you look up the anatomy, the nervous system is essentially made up of fatty acids. Which, if we look at a lot of foods that are great for the nervous system, they're typically always fatty in nature. It's because these fats and oils nourish and insulate and protect our nervous system. Thus, high-quality oils have a great propensity and affinity for the nervous system. So for that reason, that's why I feel like reishi spore oil is like my favorite thing right now for really approaching and working with the nervous system from an herbal perspective. There's obviously other things that can be done. We should be meditating. If we're not already, we definitely should be doing that and doing some meditation and breathing and visualization and gratitude on a regular basis. Obviously, regular exercise, qigong and tai chi, and even acupuncture if we have access to it. These things are all great things to have in place, just to support and facilitate a great lifestyle. But if we want to look at it herbally and supplementally and things that can really just blast it off, I feel like the reishi spore oil is a really great thing for this, specifically because it's the oil extracted from the reishi spores. Thus, it contains 33 to 38% triterpenes, plus all of the nucleosides, the leucidinic acids, and the ganoderic acids, which have such an affinity for the nervous system. Because just as electrical systems have protective layers to prevent short-circuiting, our nervous systems also have what is known as the myelin sheath that serves to have a similar function. And the myelin sheath is actually a protective layer of fatty acids that allows our nervous impulses to transmit more efficiently and effectively. It is actually essential for the proper functionality of our nervous system. So for that reason, things which are fatty and oily have such a propensity and affinity for the nervous system. And if all of that seems kind of weird, just look at your eyes. Your eyes are fatty and oily. The brains are fatty and oily. And the eyes are essentially the opening of the nervous system. They're the part of the nervous system which we can actually see and view physically. The rest of our nervous system is actually protected in our body. It has either a layer of skin or, like our brain, it has a skull around it to protect it because it's so delicate and fragile. But yet our eyes, that's a part of our nervous system that's actually exposed to the elements, the air and dust and all these different environmental factors which can influence and really impact our eyes and our nervous system. So really, sometimes just like a really quick and easy way to relax and chill out is to just relax the eyes, to do some simple eye exercises or eye massage, and just that alone can relax the nervous system, because the eyes are the opening of the nervous system. If we release tension from the eyes, we're going to release tension from the nervous system. And that can sound weird to some people, because I know if you went to your MD and you're like, hey, I've been exercising my eyes to relax my nerves and to calm down, they're going to say, oh, well, that's kind of weird. It doesn't make sense. Why would you do that? And if you say, oh, well, the eyes are connected to the wood element, which is associated with the liver, which is associated with the nervous system, they're going to say, well, that sounds even more weird. It makes no sense. But if you realize that, well, the eyes are actually a part of the nervous system and an obvious opening to the nervous system, so by releasing tension from the eyes, you're literally, tangibly, physically, actually releasing tension from the nervous system. So just one fun little tidbit that I wanted to throw in. I like to do eye exercises before I go to bed, just as a way to unwind, relax, and release tension from the nerves, and to just induce more calm and relaxation in the body as I'm falling asleep. So hopefully this audio has been helpful. We've talked a lot about Shen, we've talked a lot about the heart, a lot about how all these different things interplay, and hopefully glimpse into the Chinese understanding, or not necessarily the Chinese understanding, because that's a little bit generic. It's much deeper than just Chinese. It's something which transcends nationality and culture and boundaries and really paradigms and programs in general. It's something which is innately natural. It's an inherent natural principle. It's an inherent natural understanding of the world, of just observing. Because really, if we look at the roots of, quote, Chinese medicine or Chinese philosophy, it's essentially people observing nature and using nature as the model. But without diverging too far, we'll just leave it at that. And I hope that's really been helpful. It's a lot of things which have been going through my mind lately, things which I've been really thinking about, meditating upon, and putting into action in my own life, and just observing in the world around me. Some really profound concepts, deep concepts, and potentially extremely transformative concepts as well. But I wanted to make the podcast now because, again, it's in the middle of June, it's summertime, it's fire element time, so we should really understand what it's all about and how all these things connect from the internal world, the external world, and how all these different things interrelate and interface and impact each other, and then what we can do to really nourish that and take advantage of it. And really, for me, I'm just doing a lot of, obviously, meditation, inner work, working with the mind, working with the emotions, working with expressing creativity and authenticity and more of our own true innate sense of who we are. But then from just a purely herbal perspective, just really loving the reishi spore oil, loving reishi in general, and just super stoked about how the oil essence from the spores is actually just getting deep to the nerves and getting right in the nervous system. That's something I felt honestly from the first dose that I ever had, and something which I've had corroborated from pretty much everyone that I've let try it. And all of the people who've bought it so far in the last couple of weeks have said pretty much the same thing. So hopefully that's all been helpful. It's a lot of big picture stuff, a lot of cool ideas and cool concepts. We can see now how this all sort of interconnects and interrelates and interplays with each other. Because for me, it's really what I'm into. It's really what's exciting for me and really interesting. So I just wanted to share some of that with you. Hopefully you've enjoyed it. If you have any questions or comments, definitely get in touch with me. Either post a comment below if you can or send me an email, whichever is easiest. And I look forward to talking to you soon.